Phantom Thieves, a bad home life, and a sick cat. Your introduction to him is one of the best in the game. When you first meet him and ask him to teach you how to use guns, he refuses until you can prove to him you know the Phantom Thieves. And the way you do this is by asking Futaba to hack the leaderboards of the arcade to play a message to prove what we're saying is true. This is the only instance in the game where we actually get to see the expertise of a party member being used for goals outside of the main story. Despite this great introduction, Shinya's story falls flat and fails to deliver. In the early ranks of his story, you learn about his home life and that things aren't going great for him. He hates being at home, his mom is very cold, and thinks that losing is the worst possible outcome to any situation. And because of her complaints to the school, Shinya is getting bullied and is in a state of war against the other kids, and he needs to win, which is why he wants to become strong like the Phantom Thieves. The next few times you meet him, he gets challenged to a game of Gunabout by a professional player and loses 10 times in a row. He says later that he thinks the pro player is cheating, and that when he told his mom he lost, she got mad at him. The story seems pretty standard so far. The only thing that we haven't touched on yet is the dialogue choices. In most scenes in Persona 5, at certain points in conversations, you will get the choice of 2 or 3 dialogue options. These dialogue choices never affect the outcome of any scene, with the exception at the very end of the game. In the main story, they're inconsequential, but during S-Link, certain dialogue choices will award you with more relationship points with the character you're hanging out with, meaning that there is a right choice to pick if you want to build up your relationship and see what their story is faster. Most of the choices that award the most points involve you saying something that the other character would like to hear, which makes sense in most cases, but it stands out particularly with Shinya, as he tells you about his issues of being bullied at school and fighting back against them. The choices that you are given the most points for are always obviously terrible things to say to this kid. When Shinya talks about needing to be stronger to win the war against the bullies that attack him in large numbers, the correct choice is telling him that that's the spirit, which is a pretty messed up thing to say to a kid who's being horribly bullied and ostracized by his peers. Every time he accuses the pro player of cheating despite having absolutely no evidence that he's done so, the correct choice is to agree with him and join in on bashing the pro player and even encouraging Shinya to get his revenge on him. While it makes sense that Shinya would like you more for agreeing with him, it's strange that the game actively rewards you for telling a kid in a really bad situation that he has the right idea when trying to fight back against everyone in the world, that losing is a sign of weakness, and is feeding into his own ego by justifying his losses as his opponent is cheating. This comes off even more tone deaf when you...
I had forgotten about this. Also, with his total 180 in life outlook at the end, despite giving him nothing but terrible 3 R's, I don't know if that was on purpose, but I very much doubt it, advice the whole link so his growth feels unearned and rushed by the ending. So, you're mad when the Phantom Thieves do too much to change a person instead of letting them grow on their own. And you're mad when the person grows on their own, but it feels rushed for some reason. Because it's just like, yes, keep doing that, keep doing it. And he's letting them fail and learn on his own. And it's just like, you shouldn't be doing that for a kid.
I'm personally fine with that, feeding his ego and crap, because you want to learn from him. And also, this is a kid that you don't know. Who, if you start lecturing him, you think he's gonna listen? He's already dealing with authority figures telling him what to do and everything. He doesn't want to hear that. Maybe not the right thing to do, but it's the right thing to do in this option.
Consider that at the end of his rank 5 meeting, Shinya says that you're like an older brother to him. Shouldn't an older sibling help to protect or guide their younger siblings to a better path?
No, not all older siblings act that way. Some are just like, yeah, you do it and you just gotta learn.
Yeah. Trial and error, you gotta learn.
Sometimes it gets to a situation like, let's say Shinya had brought a bat to school to beat the bullies up. It's just like, no, you can't be doing that, kid. Like, there's some guidance there. Or if he says, I'm going to go get a bat and beat them to death, it's just like, oh, what are you talking about? But most of the time, it's just like, nah, you do you. And if they come to you for advice, it's different than just going, hey, don't blah, blah, blah.
Him to be self-destructive is an awful thing to do, especially considering that you only ever meet him in the arcade, and he'll have to face the consequences following through on your great advice given to him, all on his own. If the game had more dynamic responses to the options you give him in dialogue...
It sounds like a problem that was present in Persona 3 and 4 as well. So, I don't...
Better games as well.
instead of just, oh, I told him the thing he doesn't like to hear, so that means I have to hang out with him more and the story happens exactly the same. You could give him more correct.
So how is he dealing with the consequences of what you said to do? If no matter what you say and do, it plays out the same.
I do not know what. This is.
I forgot how draining this was.
It really is.
Dude, for Phil, it was just like, we have to stop. We're having too much fun and we want to keep going, but we have to stop.
This is just like, no, we got it.
Options that, while he may not like hearing it and this may cause a rift between you, in the end it would actually help him more as a character. But with how the system is now,
okay, the game wants you to say that, but you are not forced to say that.
Yeah, no. If you're fast tracking it, yeah, but you can go, I don't want to do this, and don't do it.
giving him what is clearly the right answer but not the correct answer the game wants you to give, all it does is make you need
who are you to judge that that's the right answer?
to hang out with him more, and the hangouts that just say you and Shinya played at the arcade, which is what normally happens if you don't get enough relationship points during a certain hangout, so you need to do a subsequent meaningless one to get to the next rank for any of the S-Links. His story continues with him telling you all about how much money he's made from today's session at the arcade, when it's revealed that he got all that money by intimidating some of the younger kids. Shinya tries to defend his position, but one of the kids says that the Phantom Thieves should target him next. Shinya realizes that he's being the bad guy and should be punching up and not down. For rank 7, he tells you that his mom's behavior has only gotten worse, and you get to experience it firsthand as she spots you with him and threatens to tell your school about how you're messing with grade schoolers and filling his head with nonsense. The encounter ends with Shinya asking you to change his mom's heart. After this, you meet up with the Phantom Thieves, and then you decide to target his mom with mementos. Makoto says Shinya should be the one to deliver the calling card himself. The rank 8 meeting consists of meeting up with Shinya, handing him the calling card, and leaving. This is by far the most worthless confidant meeting.
This rank wasn't even 2 minutes while pausing to see what the right options were in a guide. LOL. What? Oh.
This is by far the most worthless confidant meeting in the entire game. Nothing happens in this scene other than handing him the card and telling him to deliver it to his mom, while he says he wants his old mom back. But we also have the extremely strange event of needing a calling card for this target in mementos. This is the only time in the entire game that this comes up. Every other mementos request before and after this has never mentioned a calling card needing to be sent, even just mentioning it in passing. And it seems weird that one...
Isn't it sent in the main story?
Yeah,
so
he's saying.
I understand what he's saying, but at the same time, like, there's precedence for a calling card being sent.
But it's also could be seen as it's not they need to do a calling card. It's, hey, the Phantom Thieves have your back. Here is proof that they have your back. And watch as your mother gets changed. It's not just a rumor. It's gonna happen.
Seems weird that one would have been necessary at all, given that mostly the only thing you know about your targets is their name in the real world, not their address or anything about them past the bad things that they're doing. On top of the fact that a custom calling card for every mementos target would mean having to make 26 extra calling cards off screen and never mentioning them at all. In fact, after Morgana introduces the part,
Yusuke can copy cards, skill cards, in minutes. It's nothing.
and explains its rules, he explicitly states that calling cards aren't needed for targets and mementos since the existence of the website where people post requests is enough. A possible reason for one being needed here is that Shinya's mom could have not checked the website, but that doesn't explain all the other targets like Futaba's uncle, who would also probably have not known about the form, but still doesn't need a calling card. The only possible explanation I could come up with for how different this confidant is from all the others is that Shinya's story came from an earlier draft of the game, when they hadn't quite figured out the rules of mementos and confidants yet, and they forgot to update it for the final release.
Forgot might be a bit much, but there really isn't any other reason for this to be the way it is, so all we can guess is they forgot, got lazy, or are just incompetent. No,
that's putting too much on it.
As far as forgot, they forgot to add it to the rest, or were just like, or they forgot to take it out the game. Maybe they just wanted him to hand deliver a card.
Yeah, that's what my assumption is. But this is going way too much for this one little scene. He said that it was inconsequential 2 minutes.
Yeah, your explanation is longer than the scene.
Let's go.
LOL.
We've got 15 other confidants to get to.
Bruh, I really want to get to the main story. This is terrible.
The ending of his story plays out like all the others. He talks about how his mom has changed.
If it's like all the others, just yada yada the others.
About it and is thankful to the Phantom Thieves. He says that he understands that losing isn't a bad thing since it's always a stepping stone to the path of improving yourself, and that he still wants to become stronger, but now it's to protect the weak rather than himself.
You know, it's a little hypocritical of us when we go, a analyst will name like 3 characters that you could apply this to, and then don't name the characters it doesn't apply to, like when, excuse me, like when Nuchtaku was talking about how stands are like a representation of the soul. He named all of Bruno's gang except the 2 members it doesn't apply to, and we're just like, why are you doing that? You're just misrepresenting blah blah blah. And then we're like, he's saying all the confidants are like this, and we're not. We might go, you're misrepresenting because this confidant isn't like that. But you've shown the one confidant that isn't like that, so you go, okay, this one's different, the rest are this way. You show the examples and you move along.
Yeah, no, I just have a problem with absolutes.
This
And
is horrible.
He's doing so absolute. Yeah, let's go.
Pretty happy ending where he makes up with the kids that he stole money from, befriends them, and shows off by beating the pro player in a rematch before telling you that he knows you're a Phantom Thief and thanking you for everything. His story isn't bad, it's just kind of bland, since most of it consists of you watching him play video games and giving him terrible advice. Like we
No, terrible advice if you choose the quote-unquote game, the best game option. You can give your own advice based on the options, you just won't get as much experience.
on before, you egging him on to keep being a bad person, but in the end he somehow comes to the revelation about what he was doing was wrong.
Yeah, because he saw that the kids he bullied said, you're bullying us, the Phantom Thief should get you, and he goes, oh wow, I guess I was. Not
Pretty
somehow.
simple. Yeah, no, pretty simple there.
Feels unearned, since it goes counter to what Joker's been telling him throughout the S-Lane.
No, it goes counter to what he's been telling them if you've been picking the quote-unquote game choices. You've already said that nothing you say or do affects what he does. So
The chance to correct him about his view of the Phantom Thief's motives, or offering guidance until the very end of his confidant. We learn almost nothing about Shinya other than he's a gamer who often has heated gaming moments into becoming calm and cool under pressure. Overall, it's kind of weird that he teaches you actually how to improve your gun skills despite all you do is play an arcade game. It's the same issue of narrative versus gameplay.
A gun arcade game. Hey, aim this way, look down the sight, something. But he's teaching you a gun arcade game, and you're going, oh, you're improving your gun skills. Of course you are.
And we touched on in the combat section that guns are only useful for getting knockdowns, so a lot of his abilities, other than the double ammo, is pretty useless. The Mentos shoehorn was weird, but is far from the worst we've seen. His story is mostly forgettable, and even after witnessing all of it, the only notable thing about him is his seemingly iconic Get Smoked hat. Chihaya is...
Moving on. The next one. Here comes the next one. Chugga chugga choo choo. This train don't stop. We got all the confidence.
what the is seemingly iconic? What is that? Dude, there's so little I'm rewinding on because I just want to get through this.
Yeah, there's so many.
cheery fortune teller who can see into your fate and future. Like Shinya, her link requires some legwork before it begins. You need to buy a stone from her for 100,000 yen, realize you got scammed with salt, and then confront her about it to start her confidant. All of Chihiya's early ranks consist of you proving to her that fate can be changed with strong will. The first 3 times you meet her, you watch someone come to her with a problem. She gives them a dire fortune about how their life is going to get worse, but after you step in and give them some advice, and in one case go to mementos to change change an abusive boyfriend's heart, Chihaya reads their fortune again, and now it's been changed to something incredibly positive. She's always amazed by her ability to change fate, and in the rank 4 it tells you about how she used to think that fate was absolute, and that she comes from a town that wasn't nearly as progressive as Tokyo, saying that she found comfort in a stone someone special gave to her. This is why she wanted to sell the holy stones of salt, but she becomes determined to confront the chairman after meeting you, since maybe her fate can be changed too. She seems to have a change of heart after this, providing free readings for those who bought the holy stones. She says that she wants to return these people's money, but can't because her congregation is taking all of it. In this meeting, the chairman comes by her stand and talks to her, but when you ask her about who he was, she dodges the question. At this point, 5 ranks into the fortune confidant, we still know basically nothing about Chihaya other than she is a fortune teller from out of town working for a mysterious organization. This problem is present in other...
Okay, and she also cannot return the money because they take the money.
And she's also pretty hard working, since she's sitting there on the side of a corner basically every single night.
And she's also a person that has resigned herself to fate cannot be changed, and this is my fate, so I cannot change until you change her.
That's a whole lot.
organization. This problem is present in other confidants as well, and many of the stories are told throughout the confidants don't give us a really good look into the characters, but this one is particularly bad. The player has committed at least 8 night slots by this point, provided they gave all the right answers for the dialogue choices, and a mementos trip, and 100,000 yen. Despite all of this, the game has not really disclosed any information about her that wasn't already obvious from her introduction. This also plays into the issue that confidants usually have one rank being saved for the exposition dump about the character's life and past. This problem is really noticeable with Chihaya because you never get any real good one-on-one time with her. When people who got their readings leave, talking to her at the stand focuses all around the people who just left. Rank 4 is the closest thing you'll get to before the rank 7 info dump, but this isn't anything we don't already know about Chihaya. It's baffling that a game built on the strength of its characters and their designs somehow thinks that when the player decides to hang out with Chihaya, they should instead get a scene of her interacting with random strangers every time instead of the main character.
It shows how she interacts with people, how she feels about certain things. If I remember correctly, there was one that was going, should I marry this person for love or marry like the CEO's daughter or something? And she goes, we'll marry the CEO daughter. That's the obvious choice. And then you flip that over and you see how she reacts to love versus for money.
To see more of the man we're clearly going to have to go to mementos to change later, Chihaya talks about how she's using a strong will to change people's fates, but then the chairman comes around telling her that she's behind the Holy Stone's sales. She tries to question the Holy Stones, and he promptly reminds her about how he took her in when she came from the country and had no place to go, and that she will never belong anywhere else other than the Assembly of Divine Power, causing her to become depressed about her unchangeable fate once again. Then the next time you meet her, she seems to completely have forgotten everything about that last encounter, since she seems more than happy to tell you how she was seen as a monster for predicting natural disasters, and that she's going to expose the chairman for making her join a group and selling holy stones. Now we're done.
Pause. How does that, what do you mean she forgot?
Because she didn't bring it up, or...
I don't understand how she forgot that last one. What do you mean by that? She explains, the dude goes, I picked you up from the countryside. She explains the countryside. Dude goes, sell your stones. And she goes, I don't want to sell my stones anymore. It's a direct correlation.
With rank 7, and we see Chihaya again. She tells you that after digging around, she's found out the main source of income of the assembly isn't from these overpriced salt holy stones, but rather drugging members who come to the assembly and making them donate all their money into this cult. As if that wasn't enough, sometimes the drug members go missing and are never seen again. Chihaya feels terrible about having supported this organization, so of course she goes to the police and reports and exposes them like she said she was going to. Nah, just kidding. You go to mementos, you beat up the
Did he do this joke already?
Yes, he did.
chairman, and you make him confess to his crimes. When you defeat his shadow, the chairman tells you that the reason he drugs people, takes all their money, and then makes them disappear is that he got scammed when he first moved to Tokyo. Okay, I guess.
Honestly, not the worst reason, just cliche like most of the writing. There is nothing wrong with a cliche.
This,
There's nothing wrong with cliches. There's nothing wrong with patterns.
Yeah,
There's
no.
nothing inherently wrong with these things.
but if it was something
Tropes.
else, he'd go that it was too convoluted or it was too overcomplicated. There's always gonna be an argument against.
Didn't he just argue that the last time we did it, and this is just from my mind, and it's already wavering. Didn't he argue that the obvious choice would be to do such and such for this character? And wouldn't that be cliche as well? Like, because it's an obvious choice. Like,
Yeah.
and most of the writing is cliche in what way? There's a pattern to it, but there's a pattern to all JRPGs. I don't know what you mean by cliche.
Yeah, there's no right answer to why he was doing it. If it was just evil, he would go, he's just evil. Wow, big deal. And this is just like, well, he's cliche. There's no right answer.
He also implies that he used to know Chihaya when he lived in the country, even refers to her as Chichan. Of course, the game never mentions this ever again, because that would actually flesh out her character, and we wouldn't want any of that.
How could... Okay.
So now you want more time to be taken away. You just said you want more time with the one-on-one between Chihaya and the main character. Now you want this dude to come in and start... Come on, you can't have it both ways.
And flesh out a character in what way? By him going, hey, I knew you back then, and I'm sorry for this. He's already said he took her out the countryside. She said he took her out the countryside. So now him learning that he was part of her childhood or whatever is going to add more to her character? In what way? More to her story in what way?
In what way?
Now would we? When you go back to her to finish rank 8, she tells you that the chairman has confessed, the police are investigating the ADP, and she feels that the curse she has had since she was a child has now been lifted. Although the ADP is finished, she says that some of the members are still confused as to what is going on, and that the real battle starts now. The next scene with her involves saying that she has apologized to all the ADP members and has paid back everyone she has sold a holy stone to. Then an unnecessarily long scene where a group of the clients come up to her and start talking about how they still believe in the chairman. She snaps at them and goes full country mode until they leave. But it's clear that they're not cured and that she'll keep attempting to help them until they understand that the organization was all a scam. There's a bunch of weird things that are brought up here that the game of course never addresses, like how she came up with the millions of yen needed to pay back everyone who bought a holy stone from her, or what any of the other...
She said, first off, she said, I'm going to pay them back. She didn't say that she paid them back already. Number two, the chairman turned himself in. Maybe he gave the money back and said, go give them back to these people. We don't know exactly what's going to happen, and we don't know that it's millions. You're just implanting all this stuff.
I would assume it's millions if even just you with her, she did 4 people and she did you as well. That's 500K just that from what you know. So yeah,
I guess 2 million could be millions as well. But yeah, no, it's dude turned himself in.
To pay back everyone who bought a holy stone from her, or what any of the other members that are in the group other than the brainwashed members are up to. Is she the only person in the entire...
Wait, so now you want to know more about these characters when you were just like, we should be interacting with her and not learning about these terrible characters?
What does he want?
What do you want?
Understands it was a scam? Regardless, her story ends with her telling you that she understands
Freaking rank
only
9
actions can
and then
change
all of a
fate,
sudden
not
another
prayers, and that she's
freaking
never
fortune
going
teller comes up. What are we doing there?
Her story ends with her telling you that she understands only actions can change fate, not prayers, and that she's never going to be swayed again by titles and possessions in her quest to change the fate of the unfortunate. Needless to say, she also figures out you're a phantom thief. The idea of taking out a cult with the help of someone on the inside is a good one, but the game handles it very sloppily. I can't help but think that this should have been a part of the main story, since framing it around Chihaya means that you don't get to learn anything about her, and the conclusion with the fall of the cult is also dealt with in passing, as if the underdeveloped...
Honestly, how much do we know about Ryuji? Like,
It's just
Wasn't enough, Chihaya also gives you the worst rank 10 ability in the game. The ability to see rank 10 abilities of other confidants, so you can know what you would have got if you spend time with someone useful instead of her. Not to mention the fact that you can just view people's next unlocked rank ability by just going to the confidant menu.
Yeah, but
The
that's
first
the
main-
next rank. You didn't even mention how you can just look this stuff up. Yeah, it's a pretty bad ability. Yeah, but they're planning. They're hoping on people not guidebooking it.
First main party member up is Futaba, the socially inept
Hooray.
ultra hacker gamer
Pause.
girl.
How is he? Because he's got other confidants as well. How is he like? What's the order that he's going in? Is he going by rank of Arcana?
Maybe reverse rank of Arcana,
Because this is very odd.
or maybe it's just however he wants to do it.
First thing you'll notice when hanging out with her is how incredibly annoying her dialogue is.
Pause.
She can't.
Oh my god!
Nope. Are you serious?
Oh my
homie?
god, dude!
No. She is very quirky.
And probably autistic.
Yeah, more than likely. But yeah, she makes a whole lot of references because she's a shut-in. She's a nerd. What?
I love Futaba.
She's great. What? I don't understand how. What's annoying about her? She's a.
Hanging out with her is how incredibly annoying her dialogue is. She can't go 2 sentences without making some totally relatable nerd culture analogy, even
Cause she's a shut-in nerd, computer hacker that's probably autistic.
She's not used to talking to people, so when she talks to people, what she knows comes out. So if it's a Pokemon reference, it's gonna be a Pokemon reference because that's what she knows. And she's like, I'm gonna laugh at this, and I know what I'm talking about. What? It's great.
when talking about things completely unrelated to them, like the high-level police officer who scares her in her very first confidant rank. The references she makes are all over the place, and over the course of the game, you'll see the countless allusions to Pokemon, Star Wars, 4chan, YouTube, Dungeons & Dragons, anime, tokusatsu memes, and basically
nerd stuff. She's all over the place. Oh, you can't like Pokemon and Star Wars. What? Are you serious? This is a point? Dude!
anything remotely related to the internet. Despite all of these, the game never actually shows Futaba having any interest in any of these things outside of casual references she makes.
What? She wants to go to Akihabara, one of the first freaking social links. She has a room full of figures and stuff. What do you mean she doesn't show interest?
Oh, I guess because she doesn't have a Star Wars poster up or something.
But she has a bunch of nerd stuff in her room. What does he mean? She's making the references. How do you show that you're a fan of something other than talking about it and having it in your room and going to the places that you can purchase said things? What is this argument?
It feels like Atlas wanted to have a generally nerdy character as a catch-all for people who think making references to pieces of media is a personality, even when it goes directly against.
But that's the problem. She doesn't really have a personality when she's doing that thing because she's just a shut-in spewing references. It's not until later when she starts opening up to people that you get to see who Futaba really is. She's just a shut-in, probably autistic girl spewing nerd references because she likes those things.
What?
How she's portrayed otherwise. For example, if she's a shut-in who has only had one friend in her entire life, why is she making D&D references?
D&D podcast over the internet where you can just type in your moves? Shows and stuff that reference D&D? Maybe she played D&D by herself in her own room and played 4 different characters? Maybe she played them with her friend when she was younger? What? How can she not? You can't make D&D references if you're a shut-in. Point blank period. I listened to like 3 D&D podcasts. I played 1 game. But I know...
Recently.
Very recently, but I know all sorts of freaking terms and stuff. This is not an argument! What the are you doing? This is embarrassing!
She references a game that is intrinsically social. On top of that, one of the
She's been shown to be talking through text, so she can do that at least.
On top of that, one of the goals she tells you about in her S-Link is that she wants to learn more about her generation, but she's already a walking lexicon of nerd knowledge.
Yes, that has nothing to do with the people in her generation. Cause the people in there's a lot of nerd people right now, but I would say this generation is very not nerdy, or the past generation, or whatever, future generation. Their generation is more about like TikTok and Kardashians and
She wants to learn about them. What do they talk about other than these nerd things? How to hold
other than the things I know about.
Yes. She's a walking, talking nerd lexicon, yes, but is everyone a nerd?
What's the pop music they listen to? What do they like to do? Where do they like to hang up?
School? Almost every single sentence is just embarrassing here.
Into question what exactly she wants to learn about. She already knows everything there is to know about movies, TV, memes, and gaming. What more?
Okay, but does the person next to her like those things?
And what do they talk about if she doesn't? How can she hold a conversation with somebody who she does not have interest relating to?
There to be able to relate to people of her age. It's not like she can't have interests in any of these things, but it doesn't come off as genuine when Futaba is the only character in the game that makes constant pop culture references while also acting like she doesn't understand how people work.
No, I remember. I think it was Makoto and Ryuji made it a Bon Jovi Wanted Dead or Alive. If you're traveling around in Mementos with Akechi, he goes, people always make look at me the strangest way when I buy a singular apple. And I think it's it might be Ryuji that goes, oh, I think I know why. And because he looks like light.
Yeah.
People make pop culture Yusuke know the Ginyu Force poses. That's a reference.
She doesn't understand how people work. She never makes anything other than surface level references that anybody who's been on the internet for at least a week would have absorbed through osmosis. It just feels shallow.
What does he want?
I don't know.
How sit here and explain how to improve that. What can be done to improve this?
Feels shallow. Ryuji is also portrayed as an avid gamer, and you could go watch movies with him, and during the summer he comes over to read manga and watches movies and plays video games with you.
Pause.
But they never
You can do that with everybody. Don't just say it's Ryuji.
those things up in casual conversation. She's also perfectly thin and has immaculately styled hair despite
No, she's not perfectly thin. She's emaciated.
Yeah, she's real thin. She is really, really skinny. It's really not a good look.
What do you mean perfectly thin?
never leaving her house and eats
Could you go
nothing
back a little bit?
Oh, he was talking about how good her hair is despite never going outside.
perfectly thin and has immaculately styled hair despite never leaving
Pause. Her hair is just long. What do you mean immaculately styled?
She has long hair and like 2 side bangs.
It's not like it's half braided like Laura and swooped over and hooped up. No, it's just whatever.
house and eats nothing but junk food. She's basically just Umaru-chan. Noticing this
No, she also loves Sojiro's curry, which has vegetables and meat and protein and all sorts of stuff. This
makes it very clear that Futaba was meant to be the stereotypical geek girl waifu archetype first, and then a fleshed out character second, to make players think, wow, she's into video games and memes and can't interact with anybody because she's socially inept, just like me. The characters can't even...
That is some projection.
This is awful. This is terrible.
This is really, really not good.
I don't know what your gripes is, but you haven't. You're mentioning her personality trait as opposed to her confidence stuff. But the other people just like confident, boom, 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 hit the confidence. But you clearly have a gripe with Futaba, and I don't understand. Because you've not offered, again, any way to improve this. You're just going, she makes references. Nobody else makes references. This equals bad.
The characters can't even make the same references she does, because if they were to, it would take away one of her only recognizable traits. Her link mostly consists of you helping her work through a promise list to help her reacclimate into society and get ready for school. Since she is still afraid of the outside world, you accompany her into crowded places, give her a tour of your high school with Makoto, and take her to a diner with Mishima. Rank 6 is where the story starts to pick up and introduces Kana, Futaba's one and only friend, who moved away when they were kids after Futaba found her diary, which mentioned how her parents were beating her and taking pictures with her in weird clothes. But Futaba kept lying to her mother about her still being friends with Kana. Next, Futaba tells you that she found Kana, but that her parents are in deep debt due to their rampant gambling, and is still taking pictures of her to sell and make up for their debt. She says that Kana even put up a request on the fan site, but without her parents' name, and Futaba finds their names because of an old school book. Now that we have the targets, off to Mementos we go to stop a bunch of parents who are making porn of their child. After beating up their shadows, their response for horribly abusing their daughter for all of these years is that they're really sorry, and they're going to get real jobs and stop exploiting their daughter. Upon hearing this, the Phantom Thieves just accept this as a good enough answer and move on.
Yes, because it has never not worked.
Yes.
What's the problem with accepting that? Why would you go against that? Oh, it's not going to work this time.
Now, the only thing that could be more is just like, maybe take them to jail. And maybe that's...
Yeah.
But other than that, yeah, no.
Futaba even says that Kana is going to be all right now, and that there is zero mention of what might have happened to Kana, about the parents going to jail, and the traumas that Kana could have suffered from a lifetime of being exploited and beaten. The repercussions of all these images that her parents have made of her now out on the internet, and about Kana potentially having any trust issues with adults or any developmental issues.
So you want us to go visit Kana too? And learn all about the further stuff of her?
Instead of Futaba.
Dude, legit, what? It's like you wanted more characters. Like you didn't like the characters you got, and then they introduced characters within their stories, and you wanted those characters too.
Can I really quickly? Joker makes a reference twice to JoJo's Bizarre Adventure in the world stopping time and all that. Ann says that she used to admire a female villain from an anime, which is reference to Lupin the Third. One time when Morgana transforms, he does a Kamen Rider pose. And Morgana says, whenever it happens, team need transportation. Morgana says that because of the social zeitgeist, that cats can turn into buses because of My Native Totoro. These are all references to nerd stuff that other characters make. Dude, it's here. You just chose not to realize it.
Due to the fact that she doesn't go to school anymore at all. The game doesn't do anything, not even throwaway lines like they've done for every single confidant up until this point. This seems like the most obvious story where issues like this would have been hand-waved away with lines like, oh, Futaba used her super hacker skills to get rid of all the images off the internet, or Sojiro's government connections made sure Kana was taken care of and made sure she'd be able to get a proper education now. While these aren't great explanations, at least there's something, because what...
But then when you do get an explanation of something, you go, that's not good enough.
Or that's rushed.
Or unsatisfying or unearned.
What do you want?
So you want them to try. And then when they do try, you say, well, that's not good enough. And then when it's good enough, you go, well, there's still problems.
Because of Mementos just solved everything.
We got was literally nothing. The game honestly just moves on without addressing anything about the lifetime of abuse that Kana has suffered or any possible repercussions the parents should...
Okay. When is the game supposed to do this? Because, when is the game supposed to do this? Because, I completely lost my train of thought. Okay. Yeah, that's where I am. When is the game supposed to do this? When you could not do this social link and not get this information. So when in the story is it meant to go, oh yeah, remember Kana, blah, 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 blah.
Are we supposed to have a rank 11? Are we supposed to dedicate an entire rank to her? Thus taking away time from Futaba, which will be a problem? What do you want?
I guess his whole thing is he wants it to be a little tighter because he wants social links 1 and 4 to be like condensed, and then the rest to be fleshing out the characters and the aftermath and the stigmas and the growing as characters and the trauma and such and blah blah blah.
Have to face. Futaba met Kana when they were in elementary.
But it sounds like this is a problem of all Persona games.
Yeah.
School, which starts at 7, and she's 15 when you meet her. So they've been possibly abusing her for over a decade, and the game acts as it is all okay because the parents said sorry. The last few ranks in the Confidant wrap up Kana's story, but not in any satisfying way. If anything...
Is it not satisfying because you aren't satisfied? See, that's the finality of which analysts speak. It's unearned and it's not satisfying. That's because you believe it wasn't earned, and that's because you believe it wasn't satisfying. What about the multitude of people that were satisfied? They're just wrong in your opinion because you're not satisfied.
Basically.
It just makes the situation even worse. First, you learn that the reason Kana ran away from Futaba and never talked to her again after moving was because she was embarrassed about Futaba reading her diary and finding out about all the horrible things her parents do to her. Okay, I guess it's kind of understandable that a confused and horribly abused child wouldn't know how to react in a certain situation like this. Still, I think it would have worked better if the parents found out that Futaba...
No, dude. Do you know how many people of abuse there are that think it's their fault and just want to have it shut up and go away and just not think about it?
This is insane.
Do you know how many real world applications of abuse we see that do exactly the thing this character just did? But I guess it's just cliche because it happens all the time in the real world.
It's nuts.
This is ridiculous.
Futaba found out what they're doing, that they just moved away so they couldn't get caught, rather than leaving all of it onto this confused, innocent child. And the game brushes it all away with her just being embarrassed. After this, they promise each other they'll both go to high school the next year since they are too far away to meet each other right now. Later, Futaba tells you that Kana might not have the money to go to high school, since supposedly her parents are paying off their gambling debt instead. In the final rank, she tells you that Kana got a job at a convenience store to be able to afford to buy study guides for her high school entrance exams, and is apparently happy to live a normal teenager life. The game does not seem equipped to tackle any of the issues that they brought up at all. And
that would require you actually talking to Kana.
Yes.
And not just Futaba going, hey, Kana's doing well. You think Futaba's gonna bust out? Yeah, she's going to therapy twice a week, and she's got bruises all over her face, and
she tried to kill herself.
Through the story, leaving the feeling that maybe it would have been better if just they didn't include this scenario at all. As the story wraps up with Kana, the romance plot between Joker and Futaba is also going on in the background. Futaba's last goal is to be okay without Joker around, but up until the very last rank, where we see her go off on her own for 45 minutes, she constantly talks about how she can't be okay without you, and tries to give up on this goal multiple times.
No.
It's insane.
Multiple times. Even by the end of her S-Link, it's impossible to believe that she's going to be completely fine on her own from now on.
Pause! No, she's not gonna be completely fine on her own because she went 30 minutes outside of your field of view. Even though you're standing right there. Nobody said she was gonna be perfectly fine. You are projecting that, sir.
Up until the very moment she decides that she's going to be okay, she flip-flops and desperately begs you to stay by her side always, because she can't function without you. Ultimately,
Pause. It's because she likes you and wants to be around you. It's not I can't be around you because I'm nervous. It's because I want to be around you, so I'm using this as an excuse.
despite having gained some more confidence, Futaba isn't all that different at the end of your interactions. She's still mostly dependent on you. She's still only learned about people her age from the ultimate loser Mishima, despite already knowing about pop culture, and is basically Big Bang Theory personified.
Pause. She went to school. Makoto showed her around school. This is where people learn. This is where this happens. This happens. She saw people interacting with people. Don't just say this is the only time she hung out with other people.
Dude, I'm getting tired already.
Yeah, this is very frustrating.
Dude. I'm so drained. I have never had a revisit like this.
Yeah,
this is sucking my soul away.
It's ridiculous.
Because it's the same arguments over and over and over and over and over again with a different spin on them, and then we're going no, and we have to just do this. What?
He's gonna get to Haru. Dude. It wasn't even in my mind. I'm like, yeah, he's just gonna skip Haru. No, he's gonna talk about Haru.
I mean, talk about Futaba.
Bonafide.
2 laptops, 4 external hard drives, our PS2, our PS3, our Xbox 360, our classic Nintendo, our Super Nintendo, our Nintendo 64, and our Wii.
And she helped Kana, but still left her with her abusive parents and no money. Although she also...
Parents that changed, that they know did change, because it happened over and over. You in 1126. They know the rules. They know people either gonna die, which they did once, or they're gonna change definitively. And with no money, yeah, what is she gonna do? Give her money? With what money? Are we just gonna be like, yeah, Futaba empty her bank account? Where did Futaba get the money from? Sojiro's business ain't doing good. She ain't got a job. What are we to take from this?
She also suffered no trauma whatsoever, even...
We don't know that she suffered no trauma. We're just not told about the trauma from Futaba.
What Futaba was like after only a year of being a shut-in and witnessing her mom's death. The game...
Pause, no, and her abusive uncle that left her without food and bathing for an indeterminate amount of time. Sir.
Expects me to believe that Kana somehow doesn't have any sort of trauma whatsoever from potentially almost a decade of abuse. But they did magic away all of Futaba's trauma instantly, so I guess the game is consistent in that regard. There is no...
If Futaba's trauma was instantly dissipated, she would be fine around people.
But she's not.
Nothing concrete
Whoops.
You can point to and say, this is what Futaba learned, or that is how she has changed. The way the game handles Kana's parents and the consequences they face is emblematic of a larger...
She definitively changed. If you go through her thing, she goes, we're going to hang out with Joker and 2 other people for a lot of the social links. And she does. She gets more comfortable around people.
And you yourself has already said she's gotten more confident. But then it's talking about she still needs Joker. So that's how she's changed. She's gained confidence. Hey, I can point to that because you yourself said it.
Visible across the entire game. The seemingly random punishments ascribed to Memento's targets that follow no logical...
Random punishments? What do you mean? They're beaten, they go, wow, I was wrong, and then they change. Where's the random?
Some people turn themselves in, some don't.
I guess the way they change is the random
I don't
thing.
understand. Maybe he'll explain it.
Oh, that means I gotta go back a little.
It's ascribed to Memento's targets that follow no logical through line. Every time you take down a target in Mementos, the target wonders what's going to happen to them next, and then the Phantom Thieves give them some sort of guidance on how to move forward, focusing on how they can atone for their mistakes. Like so many of the things in this game, a good idea in concept, but the
where did the punishment thing...
And no matter what you say as a Phantom Thief, they're still gonna do the same thing. If you go, you're an awful person, or it's really not that bad, they're gonna say the same thing. They're gonna go through the same...
and random and leaves the player in a spot of wondering what are the morals and goals of the Phantom Thieves. In some cases, criminals are told to turn themselves in and go to jail, as is the case in Tei's former superior and the cult leader in Chihiya's story. But other criminals like Kana's parents and Hifumi's mom are let go on the promise of stop being bad people. Others...
Hifumi's mom, why would she go to jail? For match fixing? And maybe they just do not want these kids to go into the system.
Maybe that's what it is.
And they know for a fact her parents are not going to be abusive anymore because they changed her parents' heart. It has worked. 100% of the time. You can't get much better than 100% of the time.
Have shadows and mementos just because they're assholes, like Shinya's mom and Oya's boss. Even if all the punishments don't follow a strict set of rules, this is understandable to some extent. The really puzzling thing comes from the general quests not tied to any of the confidants. In one case, a college student who is abusing and killing cats to blow off steam, after you beat his shadow, he realizes the error of his ways. When he apologizes and asks what he can do next, Morgana says, "I won't tell you to give up your life, but you will spend the rest of your days in guilt." So the punishment for abusing cats for a few weeks or months is a lifetime of guilt. I want you to keep that in mind. In another case, a man is stealing money from his parents and several other elderly people. And after you beat him and he promises to stop and return all the money he stole, you have the option of telling him to apologize, which is reasonable, or you can tell him he's going to rot in hell. This is obviously an overreaction, and it's hard to understand why this is even an option, since it feels so out of character for Joker and any of the party members to say.
Pause.
The strangest...
Joker's personality is whatever you say his personality is.
And if you've been a douchebag through the whole story, just be a douchebag.
And it's a projection of you because you can pick all of his choices. If you've had your parents or grandparents scammed out of money, of course you're going to pick that one because you're like, oh, you use a piece of... So...
Throw them enough in TV.
Put them... Oh, that was a mistake.
is a request that comes to the Phantom Thieves to take down a serial killer. While he's asking for forgiveness and says that he was doing the same thing that the Phantom Thieves do, they all just disagree and then go on their way. The one character you would have expected the team really to dig into is let off with some words about how killing is bad. Clearly there are degrees of the severity of each of these crimes, but the responses the main characters give never quite align with the crimes. Stealing from your parents is obviously really bad, and killing multiple people is even worse. So telling the first one they're going to rot in hell, and then the second one a non-committal response is naive at best and sociopathic at worst. The other issue...
A non-committal response where the guy is going, I did this because I'm like you, and you're just... Are you going to refute that, or are you just going to say you're going to hell? You want him to understand why he's wrong. Not, oh, you bad person.
Quests is that they're all throwaway side quests. You get most of them via text.
But yeah, the go to hell thing is stupid.
Mishima, where he explains the situation, then you meet up with the Phantom Thieves before going to Mementos, and then you take them down. The only follow-up you get sometimes is a text message from Mishima saying the case has been resolved, but even then, it's rarely a good closure to the story. Most of the times we went to Mementos when we had more than half a dozen requests, and we didn't even know or care about who we were targeting. They were more or less just a checklist of...
We? Who are you speaking to?
Or for.
It's yourself. What is the Phantom Thieves' entire purpose? Changing people's hearts, making things better, and they're doing that. What more do you want?
XP to gain whenever we had to go to Mementos to take care of targets for actual S-Links. Obviously, Mementos targets can't have the same commitment as a main villain of the story, but even just meeting the targets either before or after you would change their heart would have gone a long way towards making them feel more memorable.
For what?
But then he talk about how it's taking up too much time and it's boring and we don't need to see these people and how we skip through it.
For a while now, so let's take some time to talk about some of the S-Links that handle the inclusion of Mementos well. While I do not like Mementos as a story concept, it is shown in the game that they can make it work in certain situations. Mishima is a well-intentioned but strikingly average person. His role in the story of Persona 5 is an odd one. He's one of your first allies, knows about your identity, and even runs the website, which plays a key role throughout the events of the entire game. But he's also weirdly absent from the main story and group activities, with his
Dude, stop making me pause to read your f***ing text. He only takes part in the main story events if you choose to not hang out with one of your waifus.
Yeah, because it's not about him. He runs the website. He doesn't know what's going on in Mementos. If you go, we need to change Okuma's heart, he's going, how you guys gonna do that? And you gotta sit there and explain to him there would be no point for him being there. You said that he's strikingly average. So now he's just bringing everybody down. These larger than life personalities, and we just got this lame-o. No, we don't want that. Get him out of here.
Activities, with his involvement often being relegated to just text messages. He's also more one note than most other characters, since the only thing he ever talks about is his website. Even on the trip to Hawaii,
Pause.
he never stops talking about.
No, he wants to pick up girls as well. That's one of his whole things. There's a couple of social links where it's just like, we gotta go on dates. Oh, they stood us up. I guess I'm just a lame-o.
Trip to Hawaii, he never stops talking about the damn website because it's the only thing he has in his life. In the first half of his Confidant, we slowly see him become more paranoid, unhinged, and drunk on power. At first, he tells you that he's been devoting all of his time to the website, and it only escalates from there. You see his resentment towards others grow when a date turns him down, remarking that he wouldn't have been left hanging if people knew that he was a real phantom thief. You see his self-righteousness grow as he starts taking donations from users on the website and using them for his own personal activities.
Why are
and
you
needs
playing
to be
the Metal
convinced
Gear
to return
Solid
the money
music?
because it's the right thing to do. You see his paranoia grow as he buys a realistic model gun in order to defend himself in case someone finds out that he's the one running the fan site. Things come to a head when he reaches the peak of his delusions, ordering you to take down people he dislikes for extremely flimsy reasons, claiming that you owe him for being your producer, and that he deserves credit for everything the Phantom Thieves have done up until this point. When Mishima starts talking about purging the haters, threatening anyone who dares criticize the Phantom Thieves, and orders you to take down some kid who bullied him, Joker decides that enough is enough and goes to Mementos to change Mishima's heart. What follows is the only time in the game that Mementos is handled in any interesting way, bringing into question what it truly means to change.
Yeah, any interesting way, not the ending as well, where it's just like, I am the embodiment of everyone's cognition. That's not interesting at all.
Why would you slagged off 3 to 4 characters of having to go to Mementos to change their whole thing, and instead of the characters, the Phantom Thieves, talking to him and going, hey, change the way you are, it's just like, hey, Mementos is used well here. Why aren't they just talking to him like you want other characters to do, growing on their own like you want other characters to do?
You can talk to his shadow, but does the shadow exactly transfer over if you don't beat him up?
Things are only good when you perceive them to be good. The same things that were a problem 2 minutes ago are fine now because you like it.
Someone's heart. When you meet Mishima's shadow, you have a conversation not unlike any other bad guy in the game, where they explain their problems and what drove them to act the way they do. However, after he tells you about the hope the Phantom Thieves gave him to not be a boring 0-0 for his entire life, your squad walks away instead of fighting him, leaving him to think about his mistakes alone. The next time you meet him in the real world, he's done a complete 180 and talks to you about how he wanted to be important, but realized he was acting selfishly and feels remorseful for his actions. The last few ranks of his S-Link play out with him stepping up to save the kid who bullied him and realizing that he has changed due to being inspired by the Phantom Thieves. These events are all pretty boring, but the fascinating part comes from the questions Mishima poses to you near the end of his 10th rank. I only changed because you stole my heart, right? The 3-player responses available are all variations of telling him that you didn't steal his heart, and we can assume that Joker really believes this since he has no reason to lie to his friend, and he's never been shown to be an unreliable narrator. This raises the question of how do the change of hearts really work? Bad people in Mementos are always alone in a warped section of the dungeon, and Mishima was the same way. The only thing you do different with him and not the other people with warped desires is you don't beat him up. Since you supposedly didn't change his heart, the game is saying that he changed completely on his own, meaning that Mishima was always going to come to the realization that he was being shitty, and your meeting with the shadow did absolutely nothing. This is extremely hard to believe considering that in your discussion with his shadow, it seems to come to the realization that it was wrong and changes from being cocky when you first meet him to being dejected by the time you leave. The same arc that every bad guy you meet in Mementos goes through. Again, the only difference here is that you didn't beat up his shadow and see it fade away back into reality. But the game says this somehow isn't a change of heart, even though it has all the same effects of one. The takeaway from this is that the Phantom Thieves can only change people's...
Because they didn't have to go through the process of changing his heart. They didn't force a change. He did it himself. They beat up the in Shadow, and it goes, wow, I need to change. The Shadow of him just went, you guys, you're nothing without me, blah, blah, blah. And then the next day he goes, wow, I wish he. So they did not change his heart.
When they actively use magic, guns, and various weapons to beat a person into submission before having a conversation, which makes you wonder, why are the Phantom Thieves even talking to the shadows before they fight them, instead of launching into a battle with a sneak attack to get a change of heart over faster and have the element of surprise.
Pause. You just commented about how we don't engage with them before they get their heart changed, so we have less empathy or whatever for them. And now when we do get to talk to them before fighting them, you say this is a bad thing. What do you want?
This might not be a 3-hour one.
Why did they bother to talk to Mishima's shadow at all if they weren't going to change his heart, despite knowing that he was being a bad person and deserved one? Another confusing...
Because Joker decided not to fight him. They went there to change him, and then he went, no, let's not do this.
Thing about this whole situation with Mishima is that he's known you were a Phantom Thief the whole time. So instead of having an entirely meaningless conversation with his shadow, a confrontation with him in real life with the entire gang about his behavior would have been the exact kind of thing they'd want to do to stop him, and would have been infinitely more impactful and striking. As it is, we're left to believe that the...
Why?
In what way? These are his true desires, unfiltered, as opposed to him just going, what? No, I wouldn't say that. Of course not. And then him finally breaking down. He's going, no, you guys work for me. I own you. You're nothing without me. That's how he truly feels. He wouldn't say that in real life. So you get to go, wow, this dude is a piece of and to see him come back from that, that is to be lauded.
Phantom Thieves just let their friend act badly and threaten people, and then had absolutely no intention of doing anything about it in real life or the metaverse. It's a shame that the whole interaction is swept under the rug as not actually changing someone's heart, since it could have been the setup to a lot of cool ideas around heart changing, but that's...
I don't want to talk to that dude. I don't want to talk to that dude that was blackmailing Makoto. I want to beat this out of him. Don't play the game. Sit there and talk. If you do that after you beat him up, sure.
If there's any fault of the way that the villains are handled in Persona 5, it's just that they're so cartoonishly horrible that the only thing you want is for them to get this kicked out of them.
Yeah.
But I want to kick this out of them. Mission accomplished. It's not like I don't want to empathize with the person before I beat this. No, I want to beat these out of you.
And then you just go, oh man, I grew up poor and everything. You're like, well, that's all well and good, but you shouldn't have been doing that. And then they go, yeah, I shouldn't have. But if you don't get that without them getting a fist in their face, you're just talking, and I don't want that. We didn't
in my video game, in my JRPG video game.
We didn't fight Mishima because he's not horrible. I personally did not want to fight him. I'm just like, no, this dude is really he's more sad than anything. He's got nothing but this. And I don't want to be like, yeah, I'm going to beat you into submission until you learn. It's like, no, you got to learn this on yourself. You're not going to talk to freaking Kana's parents.
Work setting things up and doing nothing with them.
They did doing nothing with them in what way?
Doing what he wanted. He said that it would have been more interesting in order to talk to shadows and stuff. So it didn't do the things that he wanted to in the way that he wanted to, and thus it didn't do anything interesting.
Just really lucky Mishima changed all on his own.
Or they knew he would, or Joker knew he would because he knows that character. He doesn't know Kana's parents, so he can't go, they're going to change on their own someday.
And also, if he doesn't change, hey, there he is. We can always go back and beat him up.